beautiful song is the Israeli national anthem, written by a poet in the 19th century, and in the 20th century, Samuel Cohen put music to it. Isn't that gorgeous? If you're a guest today, you've come to a very special occasion. An Orthodox rabbi is going to speak to us today. And here's the story. I met Rami a while back. I only really remember our first phone call. And he called me to see if another Orthodox rabbi from Israel named Pesach Waliki, which means Passover, Waliki, could come and speak. And I says, oh, no, that would never work. We willingly have speakers come and speak, like on a Sunday afternoon promoting Israel. But Orthodox rabbi, I don't think that would work. It's a conflict of beliefs. And so we just begin to visit, get to know one another, and talk about the things we have in common. By the end of the conversation, I was asking him, please, we've got lots in common. And so Pesach came, and it was phenomenal, really good. If you didn't come, look up that on our YouTube channel or our website. You will not want to miss that. He spoke on gender based on the Hebrew, specifically Genesis 1. It was a masterpiece, phenomenal. So today we're honored to have Rabbi Rami Goldberg from Israel come and bring us today's message. Come right on, Rabbi.
Thank you, Pastor Allen. And I promise you next week there will be a pastor up here, so you don't have to, we're not turning this into a synagogue anytime soon. But I didn't think I was going to be the one, up here addressing you all, as you guys like to say. As an Orthodox rabbi, this wasn't one of the things that, we didn't have like pastoral preaching 101. That was not one of the classes that I took in school. Just before we, so I'd like to just thank you for giving us the opportunity, inviting us into your home and invite into your space and allowing us to share a message. I'd also like to thank the person who's probably most responsible for this happening, the really fairy godmother of Jewish-Christian relations, Ann Stacy. And I think it's really just an amazing thing. Sometimes you think, well, where am I in this world? Who am I? I'm literally living in Granbury, Texas, and some corner that until I got involved in this, I had no idea where this was. And I think every representative of the state of Israel comes through Granbury because of Ann. So really appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge Tommy and Shari Waller, who from the Hayovel and the Israel guys, people that we work and stand shoulder to shoulder with in our fight against Islamic jihadists in Texas, in Israel, and throughout the world. So thank you for all that you do, for everything that your family does in the land and getting that out to the world. So thank you for joining us today, and keep abreast of everything that's going on. The Israel guys have an amazing YouTube channel. Highly recommend everybody take a look over there. And also, I'm sure everyone knows with everything that's going on with the Israel Summit having been canceled this week due to significant threats. And this is not a Jewish thing. This is not they're maybe, because we put the name of Israel on it, so somehow we connected the Jewish people. But this is a Christian Zionist event that has been closed down due to attacks from the world around us. We need to stand side to side, shoulder to shoulder, and in this fight together, because first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. So and they've been coming after us for a long time. So you don't have much time, So that's why I'm here on a Sunday. It gives me a little bit more time. The other thing, when we generally start things in Israel, we different events before synagogue, the president usually will get up and say, if there's a siren, just everyone move away from the windows. We don't want to stampede. So in case there's a siren, keep that in mind, that's how we are starting our events. So, okay. Just for anyone who, just to stay in touch, if to scan or to go to Israel365.com/Rami, R-A-M-I, so that way we could stay connected. And if there's follow-up from this particular talk, I'd love to stay connected. Give you guys all 30 more seconds on that. Okay. The clown, the survivor, and the sacred legacy. I'd like to start off today's sermon with a picture that's worth 1,000 words. This man, his name is Sabobo, or at least his clown name is Sabobo. He's a clown. He's Sabobo the clown, and not just any clown. He's a medical clown. He serves in Israeli hospitals, visiting patients, doing anything and everything he can to cheer up sick patients or anybody that he passes in the hospital. In jest, he likes to point out that the only place that he's not invited is to the maternity ward. No pregnant woman wants to see him. I would like to tell his story and use it as a jumping off point for today's sermon. His mother, Muncie Ritter, was born in Humana, Czechoslovakia in 1917 to a large Jewish family with a successful lumber business. Muncie grew up in a warm and loving home. She had 9 siblings and was mostly under the care of her older brother, Lutzi. Lutzi was a smart, successful businessman running the family lumber business and ensuring all matters of the home were taken care of. In January 1942, the Slovak police rounded up the local Jews and handed them over to the Germans for transport. Lutzi's lumber business was considered essential, and he and his wife, Olga, and their daughter, Eva, were spared from transport. Muncie was not so lucky. The police rounded up all the single Jewish boys and girls and brought them to the town square. Lutzi got wind of the news that his sister had been rounded up and detained and approached a friend who was part of the police force and said, help me out. I need, my sister's been rounded up. And he declined and said, unfortunately, this is the law. Muncie pleaded with the police officer, at least not let her sleep in the town square overnight. Let her come home, and I will bring her back the following morning. Out of fear and risk to the entire family, Lutzi agreed and brought Muncie back the following morning. His eyes filled with tears as the children of his youth were led to the station. And it was mere moments after the train had started to depart that he regretted his decision. Can you imagine that? Turning over your sister for transport. He quickly hailed a cab and turned to the driver and said, next station, we got to go. And he got there just in time to see the train disembark and the Jewish boys and girls being unloaded from the train. The first train empty, no sign of his sister. The second, finally on the third one, he sees his sister. He also noticed another police officer who was a friend, and this time he made an offer that this guy could not refuse. And the man took the bribe and said, no promises, but I'll do what I can. Lutzi waited nervously, shifting from one foot to the other, and his eyes filled with tears as amongst the throbs of children and young adults, he sees his sister disembark, and he sees the officer walk up to his sister, whisper something in her ear, and follow him through the crowd. So much commotion going on, nobody even noticed, and led her out to safety. Lutzi turned to her and said, I'm sorry. Tears flowing down his face as he ushered her into the waiting taxi. Muncie was shaken and remained silent for the entire ride back. It was only years later that they learned that Muncie was the only one of the 200 youth to be released on that day. The group of young people would arrive in what became known as Auschwitz and were forced to build it. This was the beginning of their story. The next 2 years, Muncie would have a number of different situations where she needed to hide, but for the most part, things weren't terrible for the Hungarian Jews until April 1944, when Germany came to occupy Hungary and Czechoslovakia, and things really got bad and took a turn for the worse. Muncie received a false set of papers and became a Christian girl named Maria Vallali. She would attend church diligently each week, learning her Christian prayers and fitting in with everybody else. She was working for a family as a housekeeper for 4 months when, while her sister-in-law, Lutzie's wife, Olga, and their baby, Eva, stayed with a Christian friend named Giza and Clara Haitash. After many months apart, Muncie suddenly showed up at the Haitash's house and explained that a Gestapo officer had come into the place that she was working and said, "You look Jewish. Are you Jewish?" She got nervous and she decided to run. Standing in the doorway of the Haitash family, Giza was at first hesitant, gonna hide. We're already hiding some Jews, to hide another one. But Clara, she said, "You know what? We could use a housekeeper to fill in, and Muncie could fill that role quite admirably." Over the course of the next year, there were many, many close calls for the Jewish people and for their Christian protectors. All in all, the Haitash family would go on to save 13 Jews, including Muncie, Olga, and little Eva. Lutzi was not so lucky. He was eventually sent to Auschwitz, however, did survive, and they came to America to build a beautiful family in America. Sobobo's father, Joseph Barish, was born July 1914 in Lvov, Poland. He was the youngest of 5, had very little Jewish education, and would eventually join the Polish army. And when Poland fell to the Germans at the start of World War II, his unit was taken over by the Russians, and he became part of the Russian army. And as the Germans approached the oil fields in the Middle East, Britain asked Russia for help in protecting and fighting against the German General Rommel. And Joe was deployed by the British High Command through Iran, Lebanon, and eventually landed in what came to be known as Palestine. Through the work of the Haganah, the predecessor to Israel's defense forces, Joe was able to leave the army and join a local kibbutz. After a few years of hard manual labor, he received a visa to arrive on these wonderful shores right here in Galveston, Texas. He made his way to New York, met Muncie in night school, and they eventually married in 1948, and Sobobo was born in April 1949. A few years later, Joe had been walking down the street of New York with his son Sobobo on his shoulders, and they passed a yeshiva, a Jewish school, and they saw the Jewish boys playing in the yard. And even though Joe was not brought up with a religious education, he said, "One day my sons will go to a Jewish school." Through hard work, catering, pressing ties, doing anything and everything he could do, he made that dream a reality and sent his 2 sons to have a Jewish education. In July 1982, Giza Haitash required cardiac surgery to save his life. Now, little Eva had grown up and married a successful doctor who was able to make the arrangements to have Giza flown over to America to have his life saved in a small debt to repay in some small way the debt of gratitude for saving their lives all those years earlier. In one final antidote, in July 1998, when Joe and Muncie celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, a Torah scroll was dedicated by their sons Sobobo and Steve. And Clara Haitash was able to be in attendance, and Muncie was able to personally thank her for saving her life so many years earlier. In 2012, Sobobo was able to move to the land of Israel and fulfill his dream and the prophecy of the ingathering of the exile. And finally, in 2021, during COVID, he became a certified clown and continues to put smiles on people's faces. Sobobo is my father. For those of you keeping score, I am the proud son of a clown. I'm also standing here today because of the self-sacrifice of righteous Christians who took responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of those persecuted. This wasn't just about showing up or a donation. They literally put their lives on the line to save Jews in their darkest hour. They've been recognized in Israel's Holocaust Memorial Museum, Yad Vashem, as one of the righteous Gentiles. I feel it is my responsibility to share this story of what happens when Jews and Christians work together. After 18 years in business, I joined Israel 365, where we connect Jews and Christians to support the land of Israel. And because of my family story, I'm passionate about the work that I do and finding those areas of connection rather than focusing on those areas that divide us. Israel 365, we have many educational and advocacy activities. We have dozens of projects, and I'd like to highlight just two of the projects that I'm involved with. First, I have a WhatsApp prayer group where I share all sorts of videos, articles, ideas, whatever comes to my mind on that particular day. I think all too often the media is filled with either terrible stories or of what's going on, or they feel, or there's a sense of pity. And thank God we are living in an amazing, amazing time. There's amazing things happening. Prophecies are coming true. This is not just a situation of, oh, let's pity the Jews. Now, pity is good for fundraising, so maybe I'll tell some, sob stories in that. But we're literally living the prophecies that are going on a day-by-day basis. There's no pity here. So this is an opportunity for me to kind of share the land of Israel on a day-by-day basis, what's going on with the various holidays as a way to stay connected. The second major project that I'm working on is a podcast called Biblical Money, where I've been interviewing CEOs and executives, predominantly Christians, but we got a couple of Jews in there, talking about business and Bible, faith and finance. And really the goal over here is to bring God into our everyday life. Someone mentioned, Keith mentioned earlier that, it wasn't Keith, I think it was Pastor Allen mentioned that one of the churches says that if you show up 1.6 times a month, you're considered already a participant in the church at one of the other churches, not here. But we need to bring God into everything that we do. God needs to be part of our daily lives. He needs to be part of our businesses and in every aspect. And so I speak to people about their stories and about business and of different lessons that we can learn. If you happen to be a CEO or executive, I'd love to speak to you after the sermon. So I tell my family story as an introduction. I myself am simply a link in the chain. I received the Torah, the Bible, from my father, my role model, who received it from his father all the way back to Mount Sinai. And if we calculate roughly 3,300 years since Mount Sinai, that's 132 generations. I am generation 133. 132 people are counting on me to carry forth this eternal legacy. Last week, we celebrated Shavuot, Pentecost, which is according to tradition, is when we received the Torah, the Bible at Mount Sinai, and such the transmission began. In Deuteronomy 32:7, we read, "Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will say to you." First, we go back to the tradition of our fathers, and we ask them to teach us, to share the tradition of our family, which my father did and does ever so lovingly and patiently. He was and always is studying, always trying to deepen his connection to the Bible, to the Jewish people, and to the land of Israel. Always searching for new insights and new approaches to our holy text. However, as it happens with my grandfather, he didn't have such a strong education, wasn't brought up in a home that carried such a strong tradition. At this point, we go to our elders, we go to the rabbis, and we ask what the tradition is, the tradition of the Bible and how to act and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. When we look at the beginning and the rise of Abraham, we have to ask ourselves, what was so special about Abraham that God chose him? We're left with very little details. He was 75 years old when we first meet him. How did he come to find God? Where did he and Sarah meet? Was he a Republican or was he a Democrat? Like, there's a lot of very important pieces of information. You know, did he visit Texas on the way to the Promised Land? The lack of details is so disturbing that the rabbis present us with some of the stories, and they try to fill in some of the gaps. This is called the Midrash. The Midrash tries to fill in some of the gaps in the story. So they tell a story. Abraham's father, Terach, as we say it, I don't know how you guys pronounce it. You know, that's one thing that always throws me off, is like trying to get, you know, Jewish and Christian pronunciation to align. But Terach, and you guys have to work on the ch sound, okay? Well, I think we're having an afternoon class this afternoon to work on that. So Terach was an idol worshiper, and he had a store where he would sell idols. Again, it doesn't say this in the text, but the rabbis kind of either pull it out or have some sort of tradition within this. But he had an idol store, and one day a woman walks in, and she wants to offer a sacrifice to one of the idols. And Terach Abraham, who's manning the store that day, and turns to this woman and says, "How old are you?" She says, "I'm 60. He goes, "You're 60? This thing was created yesterday. I literally chiseled that out of a piece of wood. And that's what you're worshiping? That's your God? That's what you think is interesting?" So she leaves at that particular moment. Maybe Abraham wasn't the best salesperson, the one that you should leave in charge. The next person comes in and goes to offer another sacrifice to the idols. So, okay, woman walks out. What Abraham does is he picks up a bat and he starts smashing the idols. Bam, 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 bam. Smashes all the idols except for one. There's one big guy in the corner. Right, one big statue in the corner, and he puts the bat inside and he's kind of, standing there in the back, this particular idol. And Terach, at the end of the day, says, "Abraham, what happened? Was there some Islamists that came in and smashed up our store? Like, well, I don't understand." Abraham says, "Dad, I'm not going to lie. I'll tell you what happened. This woman walked in. She had this sacrifice. I put it down. I light the incense. And then in front of this idol, and this idol on this side of the room gets up, and he's like, 'Wait a sec, it's my turn.' And he goes to that side of the room, and he grabs the offering, and he puts it in front of himself, and he sits back down. That guy's really upset, and so he gets up, and he goes to the other side. He pulls it back, and then the two start wrestling. And then a third idol in the back, he stands up, and he starts wrestling with all of them. And then a fourth one, and it's a whole brawl, pandemonium's breaking out. And then the big guy in the back of the room says, 'No, I'll take it.' And he takes out the bat. You could see he's holding the bat. And he starts smashing the other idols. Boom, boom, boom. And that's how the whole thing got smashed. And then he went back to his place. And Terach looks at Abraham and says, "Abraham, are you out of your mind? Like, what have you been smoking this morning?" It's not yet legal in Aram Naharaim, where we're living right now, this isn't Colorado, right? So Abraham says, "Dad, do your ears not hear what your mouth is saying? You don't believe that they have any power. You don't believe that they could walk, they talk, do any of these things, and here you worship them?" Abraham was the one to choose God. So before we look at Abraham, let's take a step back and see the family that he comes from and the legacy that Abraham is withholding. One of the advantages, obviously, of studying the Bible in the original Hebrew is the words are not random, and very often kind of the roots of the words, there's like hyperlinks to different words all over the place. So it's really something to connect. So there's a phrase called Ele Toldot. These are the Chronicles. That phrase appears 13 times in the Hebrew Bible. And 11 of those are in Genesis. So it's a peculiar thing if we take a look at If we take a look, it says, and this is chapter 11, verse 27, and these are the chronicles of Terach, and never says, and these are the chronicles of Abraham, which is like a funny thing. You think like Abraham's our man, right? Terach was this idol worshiper that he was the father, he was his father, but come on, why do we really care about him? Isn't Abraham the one that we really care about? So, pull up the verses, next one. Right, now these are the chronicles of Terach. Terach begot Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Haran begot Lot, or Lot, as you guys like to say it. Haran died in the lifetime of his father Terach in his native land, Ur of the Chaldeans. Abraham and Nahor took wives for themselves. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and that of Nahor was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah. Now Sarah was barren and had no children. Okay, this is going to continue reading, and this is really interesting. It says Terach took his son Abraham, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, and the wife of his son Abraham, and they set out together for Ur of the Chaldeans, from the land of Canaan. But when they had come as far as Haran, they settled there, and Terach, and the days of Terach came to 205, and Terach died in Haran. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions on this. Why is this the first time that more than one son is mentioned? Just I went over it kind of very briefly, but here, the whole chapter before, it only mentions one son as things are going, even though they all had more children, but it says sons and daughters, but it doesn't list any of them by names. Here, we're listed by names. And then why such detail about the family relationship? Right? We have so much detail over here, and I'm going to read it again in a moment. Every relationship that's mentioned here is something we already know. There's no new information that we are getting from this. And there's really no reason for the Bible to repeat it. Once again, Terach took his son Abraham. We already know he's his son, okay. His grandson Lot, the son of Haran. Son again, grandson, his daughter-in-law, his wife, the son of Abraham. These ultimately, Terach is all about family. He is about family relationship. That is going to be his legacy. It's critical for the Bible to mention that he took his son, his grandson, his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son, because that's his unique legacy, that of family. And Terach takes responsibility for his grandson, Lot, following the death of his son, Haran. Once again, if we look very carefully, it says, Vayikach, and he took. The same language that says that Abraham took his wife, Sarah. That is like a taking, not, like grab, like a caveman, and like grabs her and like, he's taking her. No, he's taking her, meaning he's taking responsibility, just like Terach takes responsibility for his grandson. Terach's legacy ends with the death of Abraham in 25:19, which the next time the Bible uses, and these are the chronicles, but it says Eila Toldot Yitzchak. These are the chronicles of Isaac. So again, Abraham's kind of like glossed over in this regard. And the next time we see this is when Isaac and Ishmael come to go ahead and with a sense of family responsibility to bury their father Abraham. So Abraham continues the legacy of his father, that of family. Not only does Abraham marry, which is the first person to marry in 20 generations, right? The whole thing said he begot. It never mentioned any women there, okay? This was not 2025 where you don't need to, have marriage to a woman, or, men can get pregnant. This was a long time ago. I know Rabbi Pesach spoke about this in detail last time, so, but we won't rehash that. But where are the women, right? So Abraham and his brother are the first to get married, really, since the time of Noah. Within that. So it's 20 generations. He marries someone also who cannot serve. Why does it tell us that she's barren? It's the first, and that's kind of the defining thing about her. Here we have this woman who he marries, who cannot serve her primary function as being a mother. And a wife up until that point. So, and Abraham's looking for family. So I'd like to just also take a look at the way that Terach and Abraham's literally just kind of copying that of his father when it comes to family relations. So on the left, you have Terach's journey. And Terach took, and Abraham's journey. Abraham took. Abraham, his son, obviously, Abraham's not going to take, he doesn't have a son at this point, but Lot, the son of Haran, his grandson, Lot, his nephew. Sarai, his daughter-in-law and wife of his son. Sarai, his wife. And Abraham, all their possessions, the souls that they acquire in Haran, that they left from Or Kasdim, they left to go to the land of Canaan, and they arrived in Haran and stayed there, and they arrived in the land of Canaan. So it's really a parallel story that Abraham's taking responsibility for the entire family as Terach took responsibility for the entire family. It's literally identical and shares unnecessary details about their relationship, meaning it's telling us, Lot, his nephew, Sarah, his wife, we know these things already. Again, why the Bible is so short. Why does it repeat these words? So it's repeating it to stress, so that we should know about the relationship. Abraham is simply completing the mission of his father that his father started out with on the journey and taking care of family. As family plays a central role in Abraham's family, it's unsurprising that all of the challenges that Abraham faces revolve around family. Sarah encounters Pharaoh, Lot, his nephew, in Sodom, in Sodom. The banishment of Ishmael, the binding of Isaac are all challenges to Abraham's family, right? That is where he is going to need to grow. So let's get back to the question about why does God choose Abraham, obviously after Abraham chose God. Certainly his commitment to family was primary. However, his father was equally, if not more committed to family, and Terach was not chosen. Why was he not chosen? So Terach's obviously disqualified because he's an idol worshiper, right? We can't have an idol worshiper, even if he's got, amazing family values. That would be something that leaves us leaves us questioning. So what was it? So it's not enough that he simply continues the legacy of his father, right? Because he's got to do something a little bit differently. So now what we can do is we can get a glimpse as to why Abraham was chosen some 24 years later, when God says, now Hashem has said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? This is with the destruction of Sodom. Since Abraham has become a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to bless themselves by him, for I have singled him out that he may instruct his children, that's one, family, his posterity, and number two, to keep the ways of Hashem by doing justice and righteousness, in order that Hashem may bring about for Abraham what has been promised. Here God's looking to destroy the city of Sodom and Amorah, and he asks himself, shall I hide it from Abraham? Shall I keep a secret or allow him to fight with me and argue and maybe save even the undeserving? God reveals exactly and precisely why he chose Abraham. Abraham understood that family is a powerful vehicle for transmitting values, and particularly that of righteousness and justice, tzedek u'mishpat. Abraham will convey these values through family. So Abraham has two core values. One value he took from his father to continue the legacy of family, and the second is justice and righteousness. The marriage of these two core values is the foundation of the choice that God makes for Abraham. Now, the question is, we've already seen now where Abraham gets family from. He gets that from his father. But where does he get this idea of justice and righteousness? So one possibility is that he was an inventor. He was an innovator. He was revolutionary. And he was the one who single-handedly decided, I'm going to go ahead and bring monotheism to the world. There's another possibility, and as I mentioned, the rabbis try to look between the lines and do have some, filling in on some of the stories. So there's an interesting backstory. So they tell about a yeshiva. Yeshiva is a study hall, as we mentioned earlier. The yeshiva called the yeshiva of Shem and Aver. Shem being Noah's son, and Aver, or Eber, as you guys tend to pronounce it, is the great grandson of Noah. So they created the kind of top yeshiva, top study hall in the Middle East at that time. So now the rabbis are trying to obviously draw a lesson. They're not necessarily saying that this is what happened, but they're trying to hit home a point. And what they're suggesting that Abraham studied in this yeshiva, he studied in this place to learn the basis of morality and justice. So this begs the question, so why didn't God choose Shem and Aver? These are that they should have been the conduits. Before I came here, you guys never heard of Shem and Aver, right? This is something new. So why weren't they the ones to do it? So I'd like to take a slight detour into the world of entrepreneurship, right? Something that I'm as I mentioned earlier, I'm passionate about. And I try to look at the Bible a lot of times from the vision, from a business perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective. And if we take a look at entrepreneurship, more often than not, entrepreneurship are not inventors. Entrepreneurs are very often people who take two really good ideas, or several good ideas, and they put them together. So let's take an example. You have Airbnb. What did Airbnb do? They took internet booking and hotel management, married the two of them together to create the largest hospitality company in the world without owning a single room. That's innovation, right? They took two existing ideas, not something new, right? Starbucks, what did Starbucks do? They took coffee house culture and they married it with fast food and they created the largest coffee company in the world. And what I'd like to suggest is that Abraham is the ultimate entrepreneur. He marries two ideas. He marries dedication to family on the one hand and justice and righteousness on the other. One he learned from his father and the other he learned from the study hall. And if you don't have both, your message will not continue. Terach had family and he was focused. He was a dedicated father and grandfather. And he did everything that he could. I mean, he was really somebody who would sacrifice for his family. And he focused on taking care of everyone, but he was an idol worshiper. Shem and Aver had the most amazing study hall. They had the most committed students from all over the ancient world. But without family, the message dies out. We need both. We need to have and develop strong families. We need to have a strong tradition going back generations that will continue many generations into the future. But family alone is not enough. We need to have justice and righteousness. We need to be caring and compassionate. And that's what will last. We need to care about our neighbors. We need to care about our friends, our country, and ultimately the world. Justice and righteousness is what saved my family from the brutality of Nazi Germany. Justice and righteousness is what saved Giza Haitash when he required surgery. And justice and righteousness is what brings us here together. I'd like to spend the last few minutes speaking about some of the things that we do in the Jewish tradition to ensure the message of Abraham is passed on to our children and grandchildren for generations to come. One of the most beautiful times of the week is Friday night. And for those of you that have not had an opportunity to be at a Jewish Friday night experience, it's something I highly recommend. But let me just set the scene for you. A few minutes before sunset, my wife will go ahead and she will light the candles. And I will go off with my sons to the synagogue. We will pray and hear the rabbi give a sermon. And then we'll come into the house, a tranquil home. There's none of this buzzing and beeping and all sorts of other things, except for sometimes when we forget to unplug the Alexa and we say Alexa, and then all of a sudden all pandemonium breaks out. But it's generally quiet, it's serene. There's no sound. My wife and daughters are sitting on the couch, reading or playing a game, and we sing a song to welcome the angels of Shabbat. And the angels come in and they grace us with their presence. After that, we sing the song that comes from Proverbs 31 about the woman of valor that refers both to the Shabbat queen and to our wives who spent the whole week shopping and chopping and cooking and to prepare a beautiful Shabbat meal. And then the children will gather around the table and I will call them for a blessing. I will call each of my children in age order for a special blessing that I've received from my father. I call my first son, who's now 20. At this point, he has to bow his head, a bit bigger than me. And I will place my hands on his head, and I will say, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. May God bless you and watch over you. May he shine his face towards you and show you favor. May God be favorably disposed towards you, and may he grant you peace. I will then call up my next two sons and repeat the process. I will then call up my daughters one at a time, and I will repeat the blessing. May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. May God bless you and watch over you. May he shine his face towards you and show you favor. May God favorably dispose towards you, and may he grant you peace. As tears are flowing down my face, I think about each child's individual strength and struggle and beg God to take care and watch out for each of his children. And this is the same blessing that I have received from my father and he has received from his father. And it is the blessing that I pray that my children pass on to their children and their grandchildren. Ultimately, it's about family. It's about finding those moments of connection and taking the knowledge in our heart and passing on as Abraham did. The reason that I am here today is that Jews and Christians worked together many years ago under the most trying of circumstances. Israel 365 is working diligently to set the stage for the next generation of connections. Not just connecting where we protect each other in times of danger, but connection that's based on a true bond of friendship and allows, without judgment or trying to convert each other, to be able to share ideas and to study together. We look for areas of connectedness that lay the foundation for true friendship. We do this in a variety of ways, most importantly through education. Education is the key to connection. Education is the key to understanding, and it's the key to worshiping God. As King David tells us in Psalms 111:10, the fear of Hashem is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do his commandments. We send out 2 daily emails, one with news from Israel, the other with daily inspiration. Each will enhance your knowledge and your connection from a godly perspective. We publish various books, War Against the Bible, 75 Hebrew Words, the Israel Bible, and the Israel Bible being our kind of flagship book. And Israel is under fire from around the world. And the question is, what are we going to do? Like the Haitash family who stood up in a time of darkness and allowed me to stand here today, and like Abraham who instructed his family, we need to find ways to connect and work closely together. The righteousness of a brave family 85 years ago led to this amazing meeting. And now the question is, what are we doing today to make sure our connections in 85 years from now are strong? I thank you for the honor to be able to share these words, and I bless each and every one of you in your own homes to be able to pass on the tradition that you have received from your parents and your grandparents onto your children, your grandchildren, for many, many generations to come. Thank you, and God bless. So the pastor asked that I give a blessing. So here's the challenge. This is part actually of this week's Torah portion, which is comes from the priestly blessing. The priest would get up and say this blessing. So Rabbi Tuli in our office is, I believe you've met Rabbi Tuli. He's actually a priest and is the one who is really in the position to be able to give that blessing. But as his representative here, I will act in his stead to share the priestly blessing. May God watch over you. May God bless you and watch over you. May he shine his face towards you and show you favor. May God be favorably disposed towards you, and may he grant you peace. I would like to bless all of you in each of your homes to share the Abrahamic blessing with your children, with your families, and with those that are around us. And God should grant us all health and well-being in each of our homes, and may he grant continued strength to Pastor Allen and to Ann Stacy for many, many years to come, and may we merit to be able to be in the land of Israel together on future occasions. God bless.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Go get them, Tigers. God bless you. You have been blessed. God bless you.